Okay, so first of all, I want to talk a little bit about your essay. I'm going to go over some of our resources. Make sure you're following along. If you want to, jot down any notes from what I'm saying on the sheet that Mrs. Acree gave you, you could certainly do that. So our essay assignment is you looking at the novel through one lens. You're not combining. You do need to narrow it down to one because that would otherwise be maybe something kind of unwieldy, okay? And then you are making an argument based on that idea, what you see when you look at the novel through that lens. We're going to be supporting that with your outside research. Now, doing this research is a skill that you will use if you go to college or grad school or anything. This type of research is a skill that you will be able to use again and again. And it may feel really difficult at this point, but you will get a lot better at it, okay? Research is pretty simple when you're younger, but you want to make sure that we're practicing and getting more. Let's pop that out of your ear, okay? Getting more to that academic level of it. So let's talk about your paper. Just like a usual literary analysis, you're going to have minimum two quotations per your 3 body paragraphs from the book. You're also going to need to have at least 1 quotation per body paragraph from outside research. The Book Thief is a fairly new book. There's not 100 years of literary criticism on it like there is for Great Expectations, okay? So your ideas, and this is kind of fun in a sense, are actually original. There are not people who've already thought of your ideas yet, necessarily. So you're not going to find a paper that argues what you argue. You're doing that. When you think about how outside sources can support you, they can do it in several ways. They can give some sort of evidence for an idea of yours, some sort of concurrence. It might be something that is a definition, maybe of something in psychology or an expert idea about something psychological. It might be some historical facts that you're building on. It could actually be something of a counter argument, something that you might disagree with. Although so-and-so from blah, blah, blah says this, Zusak seems to do something different, okay? So there's a million ways that you can use that outside research. It can build some background for your idea. It can support proof, okay? We're going to try to find 3 resources, and we will be sharing them with each other. And I'll show you how that happens. In the body of your paper, your final copy, you have to have at least 2 outside sources. At least 1 of those must be from the database. And at least 1 outside quotation per body paragraph. That's a minimum. You can always do more. All right? It's what you need. All right. So while you are looking for your research, when you find when you find an article that you think is useful, you're going to submit it to this form, okay? Once you've submitted your 3, let me know, because then I will share with you a whole list of all the resources that everyone got. We're going to share those resources with each other. Sorry, that was for my other class. So what you'll do is you'll fill in just the lens, the author of the piece, the title of the piece. Where did you find it? Okay, so school database, and it's literary criticism, or it's an online book, or it's another source, or whatever. If you use a database, put the name of the database here, Academic Search Complete, Psychological and Behavioral Collection, okay? Then, just like a sentence or so that explains how it might be used for for that critical lens. If you see something that might be used with more than one, this is a place where you could say this could also be used for gender and socioeconomic or something like that. And that way, as we're working and as we're writing, you'll have access to so many sources that will help you out. Okay, obviously we have Mrs. Acree's handout. I also have the database link here, and I want to go over just a couple quick things for you guys, just a couple reminders. If Inspire isn't working at home, this is where you need to go, okay? And you can email Mrs. Acree about that if you need to. The only other database on here that you might use is if you're doing socioeconomic, you might do world history and context. From home, you have to use this password for our school to get in, okay? Yeah. Exactly. So yesterday, she had you looking up Book Thief so that we'd have that literary criticism at the outset, and we were just kind of starting to practice. But you guys will look up what you need to look up for your stuff. So if you're doing socioeconomic, history stuff, if you're doing psychological, that kind of stuff. And so you'll have all kinds of possibilities to support you that come from outside of literary criticism. So here's my reminders. Don't search up here. Go databases A to Z and choose your database, all right? And speaking of what Teddy is discussing, let's dive into psychology. Let's say I'm looking for survivor guilt. And remember, you want to do just keywords, okay? And I want to do full text. If you look at this one, children's survivor guilt after the Great East Japan earthquake. There is no HTML here. There is no PDF here. I can't get this article, okay? So I'm going to do full text, so I only get those. Remember that to save the article, which you want to do right away, you click over here, send it to your Google Drive. To cite, in the Gale, it's quotation marks. Here, it's this little yellow works cited page, and you just have to find MLA and copy and paste, okay? Couple keys. This abstract is a summary of the article, okay? So you can skim and scan that to know if the article might be helpful for you then to go in further to it, okay? Also, this gives you subjects. This is a great place to look for other search terms, okay? Because part of research is just finding just the right search term sometimes. Look at this, psychological resilience. Wow, I wouldn't have thought to look that up, but now I know that that's something that maybe I want to look at if I see Liesl as resilient, right? Again, make sure to save because this guy will time out up here, and that's going to make your life difficult if you don't save right away. All right, I have this, which has good databases for the Book Thief, okay? Obviously, for literary criticism, what we went over yesterday. For psychological, there's psychological and behavioral science. For socioeconomic, these two. Archetypal, these two. Spiritual, gender, and general, like maybe if you're looking for something and struggling, this might be a good place to look. It's not going to have academic sources, but it might have credible sources that are consumer sources. The Wall Street Journal, okay? Atlantic Monthly, something like that, okay? And then there's some scholarly internet sources too. Folks, I have one caveat or warning here. Some of these things will come up. You will not be able to access them because they're behind a paywall. You would have to have paid for the database, and they would be extraordinarily expensive. If you find something here that you like and you can't get to the article, let me know. Possibly I can figure out another way to get it for you. There are websites that might be credible too that you can use. Please use the CRAP test, okay? You want to think about, is it current? Is it relevant? The authority, who's publishing this? Is this an expert or is this some random yokel on the internet? Is it accurate, and what's the purpose for it, okay? Purpose for academic and stuff is obviously privileged for us here, okay? Let's see, what else do I need to talk to you about? All right, this research question doc that you put your research questions on and your basic idea, if you want to, you could like brainstorm some search terms and keywords and keep track of them there. You could also write it in your notebook somewhere, but sometimes it's helpful to write down what keywords you're using just because you may lose track after a lot of searches. What else do I need to tell you guys? You've got the form to gather your materials, okay? If you get a website, all right, it will not have the works cited for you necessarily, okay, if you use a book. That's the nice thing about the databases. So I've got the MLA stuff linked here, but also our Google Docs, I'll just use this. Our Google Docs does have a citation engine, which to my understanding has been improved so much that we're actually willing to let you use it. In the past, they were terrible and they just messed everything up. But it has citations. It has MLA 8th edition. That is not the updated edition. So there are a few things. But you can enter like your website or whatever. All right, don't do the database. You can get the works cited page, the works cited directly from the database. Don't bother to do this, it's extra work, just copy paste. But if you have a website or you have something in print, you could use that if you like, and of course you can use the actual MLA as well. I think that's everything. What questions do you have about this at the moment? Is there anything that you might like to ask that maybe other people are wondering as well? Okay, so here's what's what.